That brings us to item number 12, which is public participation. And I will just read from part of our board policy. The board welcomes and encourages public participation at meetings. We respectfully ask that you adhere to the procedures and decorum provided in board policy, BEDH, public participation at meetings. Your comments will be limited tonight to 2 minutes, basically because we have so many people signed up. Questions asked during public participation that are placed in writing will receive a written response in a timely manner. We ask that you keep your remarks accurate and truthful, that you not issue any personal attacks against any member of the board, the community, the staff, the superintendent, or especially set a good example for our students, model good behavior. And with that, we will go to our first speakers, and I will tell you that we'd ask that you not applaud speakers tonight. I know we had that at the last meeting. That takes extra time. If you agree with a speaker, you're perfectly welcome to stand up. That's not a quiet process in this room either, but we would ask that you hold any applause. We're not an applauding part of our program right now. So with that, we'd ask for your cooperation, and we'll go to our first speaker, Ms. Charlie Wessinger.
Mr. Gant, do you think they could just hold up their hands? I know it's so loud, that might be easier for some of the
Ms.
people.
Hutchinson, that's a great idea. If you agree with the speaker, rather than stand up, if you just raise your hand, and if you would adhere to our request to not go into applause, I would appreciate it. If someone has come tonight and timed out remarks that you've written down to 3 minutes, we will try our best to adhere to that. But with the number that have signed up, we'd be here most of the night doing this. Ms. Hammond.
I have a question. I don't want to interrupt that. But
Okay, well, let's go on to our public participation then.
May I ask it after? Because I usually, when he gives the presentation, he asks for questions, and I had some.
Yes, we'll go back to that after
so
this.
however you want to do it, I'm asking.
She had a question about one of your presentation. We will come back to it.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, Ms. Wessinger, you're started. Sorry, thank you.
No problem. I'm happy to say that my baby, my last child, just graduated from Chapin High School, so that made me very excited, and I'm very proud to be a member of the Chapin community. We are not opposed to education or controlled growth. In fact, we wish the board would put more effort and funds toward teaching our children than creating development to justify new schools. So let's take a moment to look at the concept of neighborhood schools. The basic definition of a neighborhood school is where students are assigned based off geography and practicality. This means the neighborhood school is a reflection of the local community. And on the flip side, we have charter schools and magnet schools that are individual choice. The magnet schools tend to be more diverse with parental involvement than a typical neighborhood school. And a typical neighborhood school is one that children can easily walk to or bike to if their parents choose to allow them to do that. That will not be possible at the Amex Ferry Road site. Any child that chooses to walk with their parents' permission or ride a bicycle to school will be in imminent danger. In Richland County schools, there was a declining enrollment due to suburban sprawl for some of the schools, and those schools were then converted into magnet schools. Blythewood used to be a semi-rural area, but due to the uncontrolled development and growth, the schools popped up all over the place. In fact, a childhood friend of mine that lived on Amex Ferry Road in that area for a while stated that 4 different schools popped up on her road, and that it was absolutely ridiculous with the traffic being unsafe and too congested, so she moved her family to an unpopulated area. Richland County is now trying to get this growth under control with the town and country zoning. I've prepared 3 minutes. I'm going to continue reading for a moment. Now the same thing is starting to happen here in District 5. Schools with lower enrollment are being converted to magnet schools, which has created overcrowding at some schools like Lake Maria Elementary. That area, which is currently experiencing the tremendous growth with overdevelopment and school choice, it's time for District 5 to consider more cost-effective measures. Rezoning is a perfect example of how this could help. If a new school was to be built on Amex Ferry Road, there would be rezoning anyway. Chapin Elementary School is the neighborhood school for the west side of Chapin. Why not rezone to the east? The Derrick Pond Road land that you purchased a number of years ago, why is that not being developed as planned from the bond referendum? Wouldn't it be common sense to rezone where the current developments are needed, or the current developments are currently? According to District 5 facility planning policy, the board should seek input for the community in determining long-range needs. I have 3 questions that I've written down that I would like to give to one of you. Over 755 signatures are on a petition against the proposed site on Emmix Ferry Road, with continued complaints and public participation questioning the proposed site, as well as complaints about the price of the land topping out at over $1 million once all fees are paid. Why are you not listening to your constituents? Why are you not looking to rezone east? Can you take current enrollment at the District 5 schools and pinpoint the addresses on a map so we can see an enrollment study? Thank you.
Ms. Wessinger, if you give your questions to Mrs. Goggins. Our next speaker is Leslie Bundrick, and after Ms. Bundrick will be Leisha Huffstetler. And after Ms. Huffstetler, Ms. Kim Murphy.
Hey there, good evening. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to kind of follow on the topic of exactly what Charlie just spoke about, is that our concerns about the need for the school. Is the growth truly there? When we went through and discussed the proposed budget, it was less than 1% growth, I think, that we've seen. So I don't know that that justifies a new school. Also, right now, as I understand it, and one of my questions was, the intended capacity of our current schools for Lake Murray Elementary and Chapin Elementary, as I understand it, it's 1,000 students comfortably without portables. That's the intended amount of students, and we're certainly under that for both schools. So we're thinking of shifting some of those students back to maybe Chapin Elementary School, where over the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen a decrease in enrollment there. So, maybe looking to shift some of those students from one location to another, and then adding on to what we currently have. I think that would be responsible use of our taxpayer dollars, and then maybe those funds that we're not spending on property, we can put back into the classrooms. We can put towards our teachers, put towards the things that they need in the classroom to do their job so they're not reaching into their pockets to pay every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Leisha Huffstetler.
Happy summer. I want to start off with thanking Jan Hammond and Michael Cates for answering my phone calls and talking with me. They have done an excellent job, and I'm just thanking them publicly. I need your help. People are asking me, why is the district paying $740,000 on a 20-acre tract that the Lexington County has only assessed at $186,000? I have no answer for them. So I'm asking for your help. What do I say to them? Because it's our tax money that you're spending. What were the competitive comps used to validate and determine this price? This is my question. The Derrick Pond property is worth $480,000, and you paid $590,000. I also want to know in writing, the state of the South Carolina DOT required you, the district, to have a traffic study. Where is it in process? Have you got a engineering firm? And what is the name of the engineering firm? And what in the process, have they started it? Are they in the middle of it, or have they finished it? We, the taxpayers, deserve to know what the results are, because we live down that road. We drive down that road. My kids cross that road to go visit family, and I want it safe. And safety is a very pertinent issue for this road at 9,400 cars per day. That's a lot of cars on a 2-lane road that's on a peninsula. It's a very serious issue, and cars will be coming from the town to drop off kids, and it will cause more traffic. This is a very serious issue for us. I also want to tell you the statistics from the South Carolina Department of Safety. They say that there's been from 2011 to 2016, 140 collisions. Some of them were actually in front of my house, by the way. 1 fatality and 59 injuries. This is only going to increase with increased traffic from buses and people coming from Chapin to drop off their child and go back. Traffic is a very serious issue. And when the results are returned to you guys for the traffic impact study, we want to see the results. It's our tax money. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Murphy?
Good evening. At the May 8th meeting, I expressed my concern for the school district that it may have violated the Freedom of Information Act, as well as the Site Acquisition Board policy. It appears that the board may have voted in executive session to move forward with entering into an option and purchase agreement for the school site on Amex Ferry Road. The Freedom of Information Act prohibits voting behind closed doors, and the vote should have instead been made in public. And you know I'm a stickler for the school district doing its business in public, and I'm an avid supporter of the Freedom of Information Act law. Ms. Baumgartner, I appreciate you making the correction. However, I'm concerned that the process you used may also be a Freedom of Information Act violation. The item was not on the agenda, so you may not have actually corrected the problem. Also, while you were reading your comments, they were very hard to understand, and I'm wondering if we might be able to get a copy of your full presentation as well as the motion. That would be helpful. And also, it's my understanding that DOT is requiring a traffic study, and that's a pretty involved process. And they are also involving or requiring that the district do these studies during peak hours while school is in session. They, I believe, are going to ask that you widen the roads, which may require you to purchase more land. I'm not sure how you can make a good decision in 30 days or in 60 days to purchase this land. You need to know, we need to know what the total cost is going to be. And we ought to be able to compare that to other alternatives, such as adding on to schools or rezoning. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear from Mike Whitehurst. After Mr. Whitehurst, Luann Dyer, and then Kathleen Wood.
Hey, good evening. I just want to thank you as well as the Kate Center host and the others in attendance for your service to the students and families of our district. And I want to say one thing. This weekend I finished, read it again, the book, The Smartest Kids in the World. And I'm excited about what we're doing with the kids with disabilities. And I hope the audience understands how special that is for the kids that made a perfect score on the ACT. That's a really big deal. So with that said, I've talked about before, I'm a part of the St. Vegas Ferry Road group. Just real quick, we now have 406 members. We have 749 signatures. And just so you know, this group, we're operating on multiple fronts. Our purpose is to mobilize citizens to participate in collaborative planning and development for our community. I want to make a quick point so everybody understands. This group is not obstructionist or has a philosophy of not in my backyard, okay? Quite frankly, it's kind of interesting. If you guys build a school on Amex Ferry Road, there's a lot of us in the audience that stand to make a lot of money. And what inspires me is people are here tonight and they're standing with us despite that fact. And that shows wonderful care for our community and great integrity and character. And so I want to recognize that. I want to make that point. I have a couple questions tonight, and I'll hand them off because of time, but I've typed them up and I have the board policy, but I have a couple questions. Number one, the educational group was chosen as the consultant. So I've done my homework as far as looking at the policy, and I just want to understand how the RFQ process and or competition was used for that selection. The other thing is I've reviewed the policy around the site selection policy that y'all have, which I think is like FEE. And I just want to, when I go through that policy and I look at the process and the order of process, you know, I ask, you know, this is new to me, quite frankly, and I wasn't around when the whole Derrick Pond thing was done. But when I look at the policy is a good policy and it's got good process there. So when I look at that site, for instance, I think you guys got all the way down to doing even architectural renderings of that elementary school. So when I look at the process and I look at that, I have some questions. So I've put that in the form of a question to y'all in that regard. And I've also put in the form of a question regarding the education group. So in conclusion, I just want to tell you guys, as a community, we only have so many things and capabilities that we can do from a government and education entity to manage our community. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately, when I did the research, it indicates that due to structure, I just don't feel like there's an incentive for the county and the school district to really work together. I'll just tell you. And so I just want to say I'm thankful to people that have done that. Jan Hammond and Michael Cates have been very, responsive to us. And I want to recognize our county council representative, Aaron Long Bergeson, who has done the same. So sorry to go over, but those are my points for tonight.
If
Thank
you give
so
your
much.
questions to Ms. Goggins, that'd be great.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from Luann Dyer.
I'm in the middle here. I think everybody can hear me. I agree with everything that's been presented. This is my first experience with the school board. I am disheartened because I feel like the community, what we have to say, is kind of pushed to the side and not being considered. I wrote Superintendent Kavanaugh personally because I had a child in another school district where he was, and I live out in Amos Ferry. And take one car accident, not all the ones that have been cited, and that's going to shut down the whole road. And, you know, I sit there and think about how many hours it would take to get the children home, because there's no way to go. So I agree with everything that's been presented. I am disheartened because I'm not sure we're being heard. Thank you for the time, and I'll give my extra minutes to somebody else.
Next hear from Kathleen Wood. Mr. Gary Heirsman is next.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Hefner, and other school officials. My name is Kathleen Wood. I've served as a school volunteer for many years in various capacities. I've worked with some of you in the past on different committees and projects. Dr. Hefner has proposed a school site on Amex Ferry to you, the Board, with a premium price tag attached to the parcel. I certainly would love to purchase a premium car like a Porsche, but I'm not willing to pay that amount because I have to live within a budget. I don't have discretionary income like that to use. So instead, I wait for something more reasonable, within my means, like a Camry or a Honda. Same with the land. Wait and find something reasonable and customary, not to overpay. I brought my coupon book because many of us use coupons on a regular basis, or we wait for deals, like the 25% off Family and Friends belt coupon, or the 75-cent Sargento cheese coupon. Some people wait for the end of the year car clearance with 0% financing. When this district makes a decision on a contractor, doesn't the district always go with the lowest bid? So what is the reason for the big push on this expensive parcel? The infrastructure is not conducive for a school. Recently on the way to preview a rental house for my son, we drove past Lake Murray Elementary. I was surprised to see so many portables. We found out that most young families are living in the Johnson Marina, Lake Murray Elementary, Ballantyne area due to the new neighborhoods going up like Osprey, Eagles Rest, Palmetto Shores, Wessinger Farms, to name a few. Doesn't it make more sense to purchase land in that area where the young families are? People in the Amex Ferry area are typically 45 years or older or retired. Have you considered demoing out the old alternative academy site? There's also the issue of students having to double up on buses from various schools because of lack of buses. So the district will be spending more money on gas and pickup drop-off length and time between school routes because of the location for the proposed new school. I realize this board, the majority of you spending many years with Dr. Hefner, are very dedicated and loyal. But this decision is a business decision and should not be based on personal relationship. Why pay a premium? Sometimes you have to understand the need versus the want. You don't need to pay a premium for a parcel of land for a school that has surrounding area issues. This is not a good deal. This is not a political decision based on personal alliances. Each of you are individuals with individual minds. Board, you've heard concerns from many citizens regarding this potential purchase. I'm going to have to skip because I'm almost out of time. As a board, you should be concerned for the potential liability issues if a school is erected on this site. People take that under consideration, as you know you've been made aware from the people who actually live out here. Finally, please vote against the purchase of this parcel on Amexbury. Be wise and smart with your decisions. It is not a personal attack. You represent us, and choosing to be a good steward of our money for the safety of children, district employees, parents, and commuters. Thank you all, and it's great to see some of you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Mr. Gary Heilsman.
Evening, folks. Mr. Superintendent, I can appreciate your initial comments on the challenges with growth and managing those in terms of school development. I mentioned that because we moved down here 3 years ago from Loudoun County, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. For 15 years in a row, it was the fastest growing county in the country. Went from 4 high schools to 19 high schools in a 14-year period of time. A lot of development, a lot of growth. At the time all that was happening, Loudoun County was faced with a very similar situation that we have. School board could do what it wanted to do. The county planning commission could do what it wanted to do. The Department of Transportation did what it wanted to do. And the builders made sure everybody did what they wanted to do. So that brought about a grassroots effort to bring together a coordinated managed growth process whereby before decisions were made, whether it's school placements, building development, transportation and roads, etc., there was a coordinated master plan. It was called Smart Growth. It worked out great. As a matter of fact, as we speak, the Loudoun County school system is recognized as being one of the best in the Virginia area and one of the best in the country. A great example of how to manage growth in a connected, coordinated, synchronized way with all the other stakeholders I just mentioned. So all I would do right now is encourage you guys, call a timeout. You have the right jurisdictionally to vote to move forward. But is it the right thing to do right now? Build a school on a 2-lane road that dead ends into the middle of Lake Murray? If you've never driven down Amexbury Road during the day, I suggest you do so. And imagine it's your son, your daughter, your grandchild trying to navigate that roadway with a multiplied increase in traffic that has been mentioned earlier. So call a timeout, step back, listen to a lot of the points the other speakers have made. There's no need to rush to do this. There doesn't appear to be. So take heed of all the other comments made, and I would really encourage you, I know it's a more longer-term perspective, but take a connective approach where you're working with the county, working with the DOT, and working with the developers, which, by the way, why aren't they contributing any funds to infrastructure improvement, et cetera? They did it in Loudoun County. You can do it here. God bless you.
Next, we'll hear from. I'd like to remind the audience that I requested that you hold that applause. If you adhere to that, that'd be great. If you can't adhere to that, I'd like to ask you to leave the room. So, last warning on that. You all met Officer Darnell with the Richland County Sheriff's Office. Officer Darnell is to help us keep order tonight. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that. You're not going to, this is a meeting of the school board in public. It's not a public meeting. This is public participation. That's part of our meeting. So please adhere to our policy and our request. Next, hear from Derek Robinson. After Mr. Robinson, Beth Williamson. and then Mr. Al Walker.
Good evening. I'm addressing you tonight with the hope that you will hear the message that we as a community have been bringing to you since the proposal of the new school site. Amix Ferry Road is not a place for an elementary school or any other school. It is a narrow 2-lane road with no breakdown lanes and a shoulder that drops off abruptly into a 3-foot ditch. I've had a flat tire on Amix Ferry Road while pulling a 20-foot trailer. It's not a safe place to break down. At the May 22nd meeting of the school board, I listened as Dr. Hefner presented his ideas to the board and others in attendance. I still do not see the need for a new school. There is a graph presented that showed an increase in elementary school enrollment, and we were told that there will not be enough room in the current schools to meet this demand. To quantify this, I went to the South Carolina Department of Education website and looked up 135-day enrollment numbers back to the 2012-2013 school year for the 3 elementary schools that serve our area. In 2012-2013, there were 2,446 students enrolled in these 3 schools. In the 2016-2017 school year, there are 2,373. This is actually a loss of 73 students. I don't know what else can be said about the cost for the proposed school site. I cannot fathom that a steward of our tax money would be irresponsible like this with it. My personal values have led me to always make the best deal possible, whether purchasing with an employer's money or my own. I've been coming to these meetings for the past couple months, and I've heard my community, my friends, and neighbors speak out for many reasons against the new school. Yet I've only heard 2 people in favor of it. One was the public participant, and the other is the superintendent. I hope that you, the members of the school board, will hear and vote accordingly based on what our community has shared with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, hear from Beth Williamson.
Lived on Porterville Road and he's very upset about it. So the same thing will happen to Amix Ferry Road and happen to Porterville Road. And that would be tragic. Everything else has been basically said that I was going to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson. I said your name wrong, but thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Al Walker.
I had our 46-year-old daughter, who's a 3rd grade school teacher at Forest Lake Elementary, finished Armo High School back in, well, a long time ago. She's 46. And our 18-year-old grandson just finished Chapin High School. And I have always been very proud of Richland-Lexington 5 school district and what we've been able to do together here in our community. And I realize that what I'm about to say to you all puts me in a vast majority in this room. I don't think it puts me in a vast majority in our community. I think there are a lot of people in our community who look forward to having a school on Amix Ferry Road. And I think there are a lot of folks who understand the need for growth, not just this year or next year or 10 years, but 50 years from now. Because there's no doubt in my mind that Chapin, the town of Chapin, the area around Chapin is growing rapidly. And of course, I think one of the best solutions for this is, and as far as I understand it, any kind of county or school can claim eminent domain, even though that's not what you'd like to be able to do, but it is possible for a school. There's no eminent domain for a subdivision note for a developer. So I think the secret is for anybody on Amix Ferry Road, no matter what price tag somebody or what price somebody offers them for the property, just never sell our property, and that way we won't have any development out there no matter what as far as houses go. But that's not going to happen because we all know that there are some developments being planned right now. Some are already underway, and there'll be a lot more coming out there. Now, I know that some people say the traffic's awful. It is. I've been out on that traffic since 1960 dealing with that, and I know that what's going to happen is that there's a lot of traffic going into town now with taking people to Chapin Elementary, and I'd like to see somebody coming back the other way. And I do know that one of two things will happen with that property. Either a school will go there or a subdivision will go there. And knowing that a school is over in the afternoon and the evenings are available, the weekends are free, and very few people are there during the summer, I'll take a school over a subdivision any day of the week. So I commend you for your foresight. And it's tough sometimes. Feel like you're swimming upstream. But I want to commend you for what you're doing and for your foresight and looking down the road long term when I won't be here. But my great-grandchildren probably will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Next, we'll hear from Rebecca Conley, and then Ms. Julie Booth after Ms. Conley.
Good evening, everyone. I'll keep this short. I concur with everyone who's spoken in opposition of the Amix Ferry School site. I will add a correction to the previous speaker. There are 3 options currently to that site and any others. There's a school, there's a subdivision, and I currently have people willing to buy it and keep it as agricultural. So that is a 3rd option, and we have current buyers willing to do that. We are a large landowner on Amix Ferry, 4th generation. We have no plans to sell, so there's lots of people with large acreage who are not planning to sell. The current areas already spoke with and did our public meeting that are in favor of reducing the amount of houses that can be built on the sites as they come up. So the community in itself wants to keep the area fairly rural, and we're working to do that. We'd like for the school board to support the community in what they'd like to do. I have 2 questions. I've written them down, and I'll leave it at that. I'd like to know what type of coordination has taken place between Lexington and Richland District 5 and Lexington County with the current Lexington County Comprehensive Plan update, as that has taken place currently. And also in relation to the proposed Amix Ferry Elementary School site, how many current students would attend a school at this site, and how many of those families have children attending the middle school, elementary school, and high schools? I ask this question because one of the main points I've heard is to pull traffic away from Chapin and keep it in the Amix Ferry area for people that live in that area. But my understanding is most of those families have students that are older, so they'll be dropping off at the elementary school and then going through Chapin to go to the other schools. Most of the families I've talked to would rather have them all condensed in one area to reduce their travel time. 3rd question being, what other sites are being considered for a new elementary school? I know we have suggested several sites that are within the proposed budget for this site, and would like to know if those sites have been considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conley. Next, hear from Julie Booth. It looks like Kelly.
I'm going to need the full 3 minutes, please. I prepared 3 minutes. Good evening. I'm not here tonight to ask questions about the proposed elementary school location. You all know my feelings from the May 22nd public participation in which I posed multiple questions concerning the proposed site. My appearance here tonight is in response to the board's continued resistance to provide any substantial answers to our concerns. After that board meeting on May 22nd, I followed up my questions with an email to each of you, the board members. I did receive a canned response from Ms. Goggins with Dr. Hefner's input. It was inadequate at best. To be fair, Ms. Hammond was very prompt in her response and eager to be of assistance in addressing my concerns. Not one other board member called me, emailed me, or reached out to me in any way to address what I consider to be widely held concerns of the Amix Ferry community, and likely many of your other constituents living elsewhere. Thank you, Ms. Hammond, for being a true public servant who understands your responsibility. Yes, you are public servants. Some of you may have forgotten that. In this current political climate in the state of South Carolina and our nation, I find it troubling that you continue to uphold a lack of transparency in your process. You have quite a bit of fiscal and fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, and it would seem that by ignoring the public's written concerns, you are telling all of us that you do not value our feedback. I'm not expecting that you will agree with everything everyone brings up in public participation or through communication with you. However, a simple acknowledgement goes a long way with the public when we are considering who to return to the Board of Trustees at the next election. My questions were for the board. My questions were not for Dr. Hefner. Frankly, I have heard the same answers from Dr. Hefner no matter what the questions are since this process started. I'm not interested in the fact that he has overseen the building of 22 schools in his career. I am interested in this one school that already had a site determined on Derrick Pond Road. I will acknowledge that Dr. Hefner stated in his canned response that the Derrick Pond property previously purchased is not his recommended location. Curiously, he was the superintendent at the time that real estate transaction closed. Wonder what he recommends we use it for now, since we spent over $500,000 for it several years ago, in addition to paying for architectural renderings for that site. Perhaps you, as board members, as his bosses, know what he is planning to do with it. Clearly, he is the one making the decisions here in a vacuum. He expects a rubber stamp from you, and he undoubtedly gets it every time.
Ms. Booth,
Dr. Hefner works for you, and you work for us.
Warning, you're stepping all over the policy. You're attacking our superintendent. I'd like for you to back away from that. I personally read the
I'll
response.
be glad to stop. I'll be glad to stop.
Okay, great. Next here from Kelly, Mr. Kelly or Ms. Kelly, that might be here, 149 Bayfront Drive.
But I'm curious, according to the District 5 facility policy, the board should seek input from you to determine the long-range goals. I'm just curious what you guys have done to get input from the community on the long-term goals. I live on the other side, across from Chapin Elementary. I can't fathom why you want an outlet, no outlet for families to have to drive in a big giant view to get their kids back and forth. And where do you plan this? Who do you ask this? Where did you seek the people's opinion? What forethought? And I think as a community, we're kind of angry with that you just feel like you're doing what you want to do with our tax dollars. And we just want the answers to one solution.
Thank you. Next here from Donna Elgis, then Mr. Mark Ebert.
Good evening. I want to follow up on a recommendation made by Mr. White. I was at the May 8th meeting, had a number of questions, and he recommended that I send my questions to Dr. Harris. My letter was received on May 12th, according to the U.S. Postal Service, at 12:10. It is now June 12th, and I have heard nothing in response, even something like, I don't have the answers, go jump in the lake, whatever it is. So it's just either, I don't care. Just be a little respectful and please respond. My other, I just have a comment, and in one of the mayor's latest missives, he mentioned a decrease in applications for basically sewer lines. So I went online to city data, and I looked at the population of Chapin from 2000 to 2015. And I would like everyone in here to really pay attention to these numbers. Between 2000 and 2010, Chapin grew, on average, by 720 people per year. Between 2010 and 2015, Chapin has grown by 87 people per year. That indicates a tremendous decrease in the growth of Chapin. So it may appear to be growing. Basically, the trees are all coming down. But the actual population, 720 people per year versus 87 people per year. So somebody tell me where the growth is. that would require a new elementary school. Thank you.
Next, hear from Mark Ebert, and then Kathy Robinson.
Hello. At the last school board meeting, Dr. Hefner presented statistics and asked an audience to trust him. Dr. Hefner's presentation suggested that the district is growing rapidly and that there were 200 additional enrollees that last year. He also presented 4-year data that reflected growth as well. Everybody's talking about growth. Dr. Hefner's position is that the district is growing at an astonishing rate, and we've got to have a school in Chapin now. But let's talk about some other numbers we can trust. I trust Dr. Hefner wants to build a new school. Let's talk about some other numbers. This is data from the actual district's website. First of all, I want to reference the last school board meeting. The district's own budget director admitted in the last meeting that the overall population growth for this school district is just 0.9%. If you look at the district's website, the first grade enrollment is actually down in District 5 since 2007. The kindergarten through grade 3 enrollment is down in District 5 since 2007. The total district enrollment has grown just 255 students since 2007. The following area schools have lower enrollment today than in 2007. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to read this. Ballantyne Elementary, lower enrollment. Chapin Elementary, Chapin Middle, Dutch Fork Elementary.
Mr. Ebert, lower than what date are you talking about? What's your date you're talking about?
I have your data right here. It's your 135 ADM by grade, March 12th, 2007, compared to March 22nd, 2017. So can I finish? Okay, I hope I'll get my time back. Dutch Fork Elementary, Dutch Fork Middle, Dutch Fork High, River Springs, Nursery Road, Lee Park, Irmo Elementary, Irmo Middle, H.E. Corley. Every one of those schools has lower enrollment today than they did in 2007. The only 4 schools with enrollment growth, the only 4 elementary schools with enrollment growth are Harbison West, Seven Oaks, Oak Point, and Lake Murray Elementary. 3 of those schools are in Irmo, not in Chapin. So why are we building a school in Chapin? In short, we may need to rezone, and a number of us have talked about this. But we don't need new schools. I've been fortunate enough to trust District 5 with the education of my 3 children, and I am very pleased with the results. I only hope the school board will trust their own 10-year statistics, the interest of these taxpayers, and a community that overwhelmingly opposes this plan.
Ms. Kathy Robinson. Mr. William P. Reed will be next.
I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to my comments tonight, because I really could go on and on and on, but I'm just going to make it very short. My concern is with everybody else that opposes this, but really the safety of the kids. If we put a school there, I'm really concerned about the safety of the kids. I've been in healthcare for 30 years. I take care of kids. I mean, you take care of kids too in your schools, but I take care of them. I've taken care of them in the hospitals, in the office setting, and I really just am scared for these children because I live right off Amix Ferry. I've seen wrecks. I can't get out. I'm concerned because we don't have good support for fire or for EMS out there. Till those problems are worked out, any kind of issues that happen at this school is just going to put our kids at a greater risk for something really bad to happen. And I just want that to be something that y'all think about when you make this decision. And I hope that you will vote no, the board members, because I really feel like this is not, a good use of our tax money or the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Mr. William Reed. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Lee Stoner, and then Steve Gladden.
I would like to offer my support to those in opposition of the school on Amix Ferry Road. I feel that the cost of this piece of land is absolutely an insult to being good stewards of our money, and understanding that all of you, with the exception of Dr. Hefner, are elected officials. I believe that what you will create is a groundswell of the population that will change the board.
Thank you, Ms. Stoner. And our last speaker, next speaker is Steve Gladden. And Susan Dorda. Susan Dorda will be next.
My name is Steve Gladden. I live on Emerald Shore Circle, which is out Amex Ferry. I had a big list of questions for you guys, but I'd say my questions have gone more to concern that I can tell by body language and facial expressions that maybe all of us are speaking and none of you are listening. And I find that really disturbing. I went back to the basics of, do we need a new school at all? What criteria did you use to determine a school? And so I made a list of questions. First of all, what is our population change in the past 3 to 5 years? Second, what are our number of students by grade class? Thirdly, what number of classrooms do we have in the Chapin area? Fourthly, how has our budget changed in the past 3 to 5 years? What are the number of teachers in the past 3 to 5 years? What is the payroll by category within the school district, whether it's administrative, support, teachers, whatever? Fourthly, how many employees total existed over the past 3 to 5 years? What has the change been? Quite frankly, I can't imagine why, based on what I've heard and learned tonight, anyone would consider putting an elementary school on Amex Ferry Road. I think it's insane. That's all I have.
And our final speaker is Susan Dorda.
Good evening, I'm Susan Dorton. My late husband was Dr. Lynn Derrick. Some of you may remember him. He was very active in Columbia as well as the community of Chapin. He was a senior partner at the Columbia Eye Clinic, and he was there for 33 years serving the community, but his heart was here in Chapin. We lived at the very end of Amick Perry Road. I still have that property. He bought that property in 1960. Since that time, the community has changed, but we have seen a lot of things happen personally on the property. We had a fire which burned our boathouse with 2 boats and a shop. We watched it burn. The fire trucks were too late. In his later years, he developed cancer. So we had to abandon our home on the point because if he needed medical care, I couldn't get it. And the several times that we did go out there, I would have to put him in the car. It was easier for me to tote him to the car and take him to the hospital than to wait for the ambulance. It is an extreme concern of mine, since there's only 2 ways in and 2 ways out. Long Pine or Amick Ferry progresses forward from the fire station for all of those people to come in and out of that community. If you have a school sitting there, how are the people living on that peninsula going to get any kind of public services? Ambulances, fire. Lord knows if there was any kind of disaster, we would never be able to get assistance. Thank you for your concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Dorda. That concludes our public participation.
Mr.
It'll
Gant.
take us to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please, because if you don't mind, I have a request.
You had I believe you had a question about
It was to follow him. Yeah, I wanted to do it before that, but.
before they spoke?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's okay. I can do it after.
Ms. Hammond had a
When you
question.
did your report on a normal basis, then you ask if there are any questions.
Sorry.
And I had especially, it's funny, now I've heard all that, but this was my request. In your presentation, you said that you were going to ask for a 30-day extension, and that would mean we would vote on the June 26th. The vote would be brought. A lot of the questions, I have some of the same questions that the public has, which I've really already asked. And I wanted to request, because, and I know I'm only one board member of 7, but if I needed to make it as a request or whether I could make it in the form of a motion, I would like to ask Dr. Hefner to extend it to a 60-day extension, because I already have a family vacation planned on. I will not be here to vote or to be part of the conversation on June 26th. And I think it's very important. And because I personally, way before I heard from any organized group, the safety was my concern, and also the cost. And so this is a project that I would like to be, or a vote that I'd like to be part of. And so my request is that's possible if you are going to extend it 30 days. And I really agree with the public in the sense that I think where I get frustrated, because I want to defend this board. I know that these people do care about education. I know Dr. Hefner does. I think where we have gotten so, bogged down is the process. It's been the process. And so many people had questions, what is our policy and how do we go about acquiring land? How did we decide where to put it? Many of the questions, some of you have asked more than at one meeting. And then the process here is to say, turn it in and we'll give you an answer. I think it would behoove the board so that you can know the hearts of these people. If we could have had some of this discussion where these are answered, like I may have a total different opinion than Mr. White about something, but Mr. White's opinion is just as important as mine. We could have 5 of us. The reason we're 7, we could respect that we have a different way to get to the same goal. One of my concerns is that we are concerned about funding. So one of the things that I want to say publicly before we vote, and I would like to be part of the vote and get this answered, I would like an at least estimate cost of making that site safe if we do have the votes that we build on it. And those are the kind of things that I would like really in discussion, we can show the public how we think, why we came to this, what is our reasoning? Because I do feel like this idea of working together with the council member, Aaron Bergeson, and this movement for smart growth, I buy into that. And I'm not, and we even say in our own policy, to consider political implications. And I don't mean you do something because you want to please these people. And I know there are people that think these 500 or 600 people that signed, or 700 that signed this petition, you may think they're the only ones that think this way. But until we discuss it and we show where we got to where we did and what we did and why, then we build trust. And so I would like to request that we ask Dr. Hefner as a board, or I'll put in a motion, that he extend it 60 days so we can prove to people we're going to get all these answers to them. We may have done the due diligence, but everybody doesn't understand how we got to it. And so we can clear up misunderstandings or clear up if any of these facts. Somebody said tonight as we talked, we all should deal in facts. And it's easy to go in opinions. And I know that Dr. Hefner is a great superintendent. He cares about kids. I think, though, we are the elected people. We are the ones that should know our community. We are the 7 that should answer to the community. Really not Dr. Hefner. He answers to us. And so this shouldn't fall on Dr. Hefner except to give us his very best advice, and then we can vote to be behind his opinion or we cannot. But Mr. Gant, you tell me, you're my chairman, would I make a motion? I don't even know if you'll entertain it, since you probably know I'm already concerned about the safety and the cost, and y'all know that.
You started with a question for Dr. Hefner, why 30 days, not 60 days?
Yeah, well, because two things. If nothing else, it gives the perspective, we are going to give these people a chance to get their answers. May not be what they want to hear, but it
Ms.
gives
Hammond, I don't know all of these folks that are here, but a lot of them have been here more than once. We're in a process of due diligence, and we don't, unfortunately, we can't do that absolutely in the public, but that's your responsibility, and my responsibility as Board of Trustee members to go through this whole process. And I think to put Dr. Hefner on the spot, to extend this, I hate that you're going to miss next meeting. There's a lot of people here tonight thought we were going to vote tonight. I hate your vacation's going to be them, but that's a choice you're going to have to make. But I'll let Dr. Hefner answer that if you'd like to. We have a option that we're trying to extend so we can finish our due diligence process, or our representatives can.
But we're already needing more, Mr. Gant. So even just make it 2 more weeks. Just give me the.
Say about that.
I guess it's more of a courtesy. What do you think? Yes. What would 2 more weeks? We still get.
I'm sure you've heard Ms. Hammond. Did you have something you want to?
Yeah, I just want to go on the record. First of all, there was no vote behind closed session. There was an allegation tonight that we voted for that extension. There was no vote. We did have a discussion. It's on our agenda, a discussion. And we also had legal counsel there. And part of the discussion was about the parameters of the Freedom of Information Act and the reasons why certain things are kept behind doors. And I just want to go on the record for everybody here. Ms. Hammond participated in that conversation. So this is like a totally different conversation she's throwing at y'all that isn't fair to this board, because there's reasons why when you're in the middle of a contract stage, we don't come out and present everything, and that's part of the process. And so you're asking to change the process. I think if you want to go another 30 days, if you want to come in to the meeting, and we can figure out where to go from there. But I don't think we should offer something that we're not doing when you have a contract being discussed. And we had this conversation behind closed doors, so I'm not going to repeat it, but we had our legal counsel there and you were in the room. And I think it's pretty disingenuous you to throw everybody like we're not paying attention. We don't answer these questions in live time. That's the way it works in a process where you have a contract.
When do you answer them? Because we've gotten no answers.
Well, some of the answers should be flowing when you present the questions. If there's not, that needs to be known. And I think, Dr. Hefner, you could see to the fact that if people answer, the reason we don't answer questions in public is because people may say something that's not totally correct, or it might be structured in a way that it then gets spun into something that wasn't intended. So the framework is to try to have a nice, clear, concise answer. Sometimes there's freedom of information issues. Sometimes there's other legal issues. But Ms. Hammond, I would suggest you call in, and if we need a further extension, we can ask for it that night, but we see where we are at the next meeting.
Let's give Dr. Hefner. Do you want to respond to that original question?
Mr. Gant, I'd like to respond to him.
Well, you'll get a chance to do that. You got an audience here, and you're ready to do that in just a second. Officer Darnell, will you help me make these people understand we're not going to have a debate from the audience? If you folks want to do that, why don't you go out in the parking lot and talk among yourselves? We're having a board meeting here. That's what we're doing. Please help me with that.
I serve at the pleasure of the board, and if the board directs a longer period of time, then I will certainly adhere to that. But I felt, based on where we are with our due diligence, that 30 days is the appropriate extension. But I certainly serve at the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Cates.
I believe a 30-day extension would take us to the end of July. And without changing what's already been recommended, that may allow for some latitude in when the vote's taken without having to change the extension period. Just make that comment as a point of information.
Mr. Gant.
I'm gonna let these folks leave, and then we'll come to you. Ms. Hammond.
First, I wanted to respond to Mr. White. I think he misunderstood me. I was not trying to put Dr. Hefner on the spot. He made in his presentation the fact about a 30-day extension. So I thought that would be fine, and but then he said the June 26th, so it wouldn't be into July. Am I mistaken about when it would be? I'm sorry from what Mr. Cates said. Because here's what I thought. I'm not trying to put him on the spot, Mr. White. I'm really not. I get the process and the contract. But I was told, and I called Mr. Richardson today, we did have the option when we did that if we needed any extension for due diligence. Am I correct? When we entered into the intent, I guess it's called. I thought you told me we could extend it because you just said you would like to do that.
We're going to ask for an extension of 30 days.
30 days, I get it. So
I don't have that contract in front of me. I'm looking at my CFO. I think 30 days would put us at July 20-something, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's fine. Then I didn't need my request. See, I thought you said June 26th.
I did state that it was my intent to make a recommendation on June 26th.
But not the vote.
No, it was my intent to present it to you for a vote on the 26th. However, a 30-day extension, if the potential seller agrees to that, would give us until 20-something July.
Okay. And let me explain. It may not change anything in the sense you've done, you've shown us, and we've had that presentation, which I'm not going into, but you've answered questions that we've had. One of the points I was making, Mr. Gant, which I think is important for any board, I'm simply saying there are certain things, if it isn't contractual or personnel, there are things we can discuss in public so that they hear from every person that's their representation. So anyway, I'm happy if we get the 30 days. I think it shows, may not change anything, but it shows we are willing to listen and to, maybe just you get all the facts and maybe you don't want to decide it like that. You're going to look at the facts. We should, if you get public input, you may take something someone said on either side tonight and check it out. Prove it's a fact or not a fact. And so I think that the 30 days is a good thing, and I appreciate it, and I hope that they give you the extension.
Mr. White, turn on your light.
I'm assuming, Dr. Hefner, when we come back to the next meeting, you are going to lay everything out. You're going to lay out the recommendation. You're going to address many of the questions we've heard tonight. And as a board, we can decide, and if you're recommending us to vote, we can decide to either vote or we can decide to defer it. But the point I'm going to make, Ms. Hammond, because this public hasn't seen this, a lot of what she offered you, we've been talking about, and there's been some of this discussion behind closed doors. And to the extent something is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, no, we haven't voted like somebody tonight suggested we had. That's not a fact. But the reality is to sit here and suggest that we don't have people working on this, we're not absorbing their concerns, he's not working on their concerns, but there's a process, there's a Freedom of Information Act request. Well, then the time for him to deliver this is when he recommends this, and we can decide whether to vote then, but what he's not had the opportunity to do is answer your questions in public, and there's a process to do that. It doesn't mean engaging y'all along the way when this stuff's under the Freedom of Information Act and we're trying to sort out things that are intertwined with legal issues. That's not the proper time or place, and Ms. Hammond, you know that. And the discussion is when you bring it back to us, and I would say you leave it there and we can decide whether we're ready to vote or not ready to vote.
Thank you, Mr. White. As you know, we just went to another area. Ms. Hutchinson, we're going to get back on track.
I've seen a lot of the answers that have been given to the public, some of the questions that have been asked over the past several weeks, and I was just wondering, because they've been well thought out answers, and I know they haven't answered all the questions, but they have answered a lot. Are these published on our website? Is there a way that people could take a look and see what some of the questions have been asked and some of the answers, and would that even be appropriate? I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Currently, they are not on our website, but they could be placed on the website in terms of the answers that have been provided.
Well, it would be in my opinion that I think that the school district has worked hard, spent a lot of time trying to answer these questions, and for people who may not have been able to come to the meetings, or people might not know the answers that others have received, I think it would be a good foot forward for us to go ahead and show some of the work, or the work that we've already done in trying to answer some of these questions. So I would recommend that.
Mr. Cates.
Just, again, I support that wholeheartedly, and just to comment, that would appear to bring us in compliance with our board policy, BEDH, that states we will post those on our website. So I don't know that we need to take any action in order for that to happen.
Mr. White, and then we're going to wrap this up and get back.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the members of the audience said that they had never gotten theirs answered. I mean, do we have a process to ensure that everybody, can we go back and confirm that if there were no answers that were not addressed?
We can go back and go through that. I can say that we've gone through our FOIA request, questions that have been submitted through our published FOIA process. We're current. Is that correct, Ms. Goggins? We checked on it one day last week. We're within the time limits on all of those. The questions that have been turned in at public participation, I believe they have all been answered, knowing that some of them are maybe answers that we can't answer this particular question. Now, with regard to questions that have been sent to other members of the staff, I can't account for that, but I can say that anything that's been submitted through the FOIA process, we're current on, and I believe we're up to date on anything that's been submitted during public participation, and Ms. Goggins helps me keep up with that, so please correct me if I've misspoken in any way. I will say, when we say in a timely fashion, that doesn't mean tomorrow, because we have a school district to run, so there are other things we have to do, but we get to them as quickly as we can, and we certainly hope to respond to all of them prior to the next board meeting within that time frame. But we'll check. And then again, I know that there are personal emails that have been sent to me and to various people on our staff that may have not been answered as yet. That's and they again, there may be things that may or may not get an answer.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on. That takes us to our action agenda.